The following program contains politically irreverent commentary. If you suffer from an exaggerated sense of self-importance, this show might not be right for you. Check with a PhD in PC, ASAP.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. The host who has no equal. He uses sweet and low. Randall Terry.
Hello, friend. It was 40 years ago today that the Supreme Court of the United States joined hands with the angel of death, with hell itself, and unleashed the most heinous Holocaust of the last century and this, resulting in the brutal murder of hundreds of millions of human beings in America and around the world in the Roe versus Wade decision. January 22nd, 1973, a day that will live in infamy, both in time and eternity. This program is dedicated to the hundreds of millions of innocent human beings who had their lives cut short because of that decision, and it's dedicated, hopefully, to men and women like you who rise to the occasion and become the heroes in God's hands to drive this Holocaust back to hell where it came from. I'm Randall Terry. This is the voice of resistance. At the root of every act of violence against one's neighbor, there is a concession to the thinking of the evil one, who was a murderer from the beginning. But God cannot leave the crime unpunished. From the ground on which it has been spilt, the blood of the one murdered demands that God should render justice. Welcome to the broadcast. I have an agenda. Number one, if you are pro-choice, if you believe that a woman has the right to terminate her pregnancy, to use the jargon of the child-killing movement, my goal is to convert you from being pro-choice to pro-life. And that means that you no longer support the legal ability of a woman to kill her unborn child. My second agenda is this. If you are pro-life, you believe that there is a baby in his or her mother's womb that deserves to be protected by law, that you take that conviction to its logical conclusion for you, namely, that you become a warrior, an activist, a political agitator, if you will, on behalf of unborn babies. Now, first, let's look at science. Did you know that at conception, everything that you are now, you were then? 46 chromosomes, 30,000 genes, determining the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, whether you would be a man or a woman, was determined at the moment of conception. That was you. All you needed was time and protection and nutrition. That's it. At 18 days, your heart began to beat. At that point, your mom probably didn't even know that you were there. She had an inkling. She was probably late for her cycle, but she might not have even known that she was carrying a unique human being made in the image of God, never to be duplicated again in time or eternity. At about 28 days, your fingers and your toes began to bud. At 7 weeks, you had brain waves that could be measured by medical equipment. At 10 weeks, all of your major organs were formed. You could swim, you could jump around inside of your mother's womb, you were regularly sucking your thumb, and it is at that point, ladies and gentlemen, that most unborn human beings are killed. Look at these images. How can anyone deny that this is a human being? One other point, if you are a Christian, the scriptures teach clearly that human life begins at conception. In fact, the Hebrew word in the Old Testament and the Greek word in the New Testament, ben in the Old Testament, brephos in the New, they are the same word for a born baby or an unborn baby. When Mary went to see Elizabeth and John the Baptist jumped in his mother's womb, Elizabeth said, "How is it that the mother of my Lord has come unto me?" Elizabeth referred to Mary as the mother of the Lord, and Mary probably was only a few days pregnant, and the baby Jesus was probably still floating down her fallopian tube. She was a mother from the moment of conception. In the next segment, we're going to look at the history of abortion in America. In the segment after that, I will show you some of the images of babies who have been killed. I promise you, I will let you know before that happens, so that if there's any small children in the room, you can ask them to leave. Again, stay with me, because in time and eternity, the only new thing that God is making these days, since the creation of the world, are new human beings. I'll be right back.
A fine hat is the mark of a fine man.
Friend, you need to get this book, We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy, and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you.
Do you know what Jesus and Randall have in common? They both know how to crack a whip. Whip it good. Ah!
Welcome back. Child killing, or abortion, as it is euphemistically called, has been with the human race, tragically, for thousands of years. In the Old Testament, God told Moses that if two men are fighting and they injure a woman who is with child, if the child is born and there's not a problem with the child, then okay. There could be a penalty, a fine of some type. But if the child was killed, then God said, eye for eye, life for life. In the New Testament, we know, as I referred earlier, that an unborn human being has the same name as a born child. From the earliest days, the church said that abortion was murder. In fact, in the Didache, which is one of the earliest church documents to survive, it specifically condemned the killing of an unborn child. The Greeks, in the Hippocratic Oath, made a doctor swear that they would not give a woman anything to eat or to drink that would deliberately cause her to lose her unborn child. In the United States of America, let's fast forward a little bit. In the United States of America, once quickening occurred, it was a crime to kill the baby. This goes back to the 1700s to the early 1800s. Quickening was when a woman could feel her child moving inside of her. However, in the mid-1800s, they discovered that human life began at conception. And from that moment on, the AMA, the American Medical Association, launched a crusade to make it a crime to kill an unborn human being from the moment of conception. The struggle went on for a few decades until state after state after state put laws on the books making it a crime to kill an unborn human being at any point of gestation. And by the way, as an ironic and tragic footnote, once newspapers realized what was happening, they joined the crusade as well. The press became ardently pro-life. They never referred to child killing as abortion. They referred to it as child killing, child murder, child slaying, murder. And the leading voice of the newspapers? The New York Times. What a tragedy that newspaper has fallen into the hands of corrupt and literally bloodthirsty men and women. All right, fast forward. Child killing is illegal in all the states of the Union. And then in 1967, both Colorado and California liberalized their laws so that a woman could kill her baby in the case of rape or incest or the child being deformed or handicapped. In 1970, New York State passed what was at that point the most liberal laws in the Union, allowing child killing up to 24 weeks. And then, in Roe versus Wade, when Norma McCorvey was approached by feminist attorneys who convinced her, persuaded her to lie and to say that she was raped and that she needed to kill her baby in Wade County, Texas, the Supreme Court ruled in a 7-2 decision that a woman, for any reason, could kill her child up to 24 weeks. And then in the companion case, Doe versus Bolton, they ruled that a woman could kill her child through the 9th month of pregnancy for health reasons, including emotional health, psychological health. Well, that's a definition that is fluid. It's between a woman and her doctor. And so the net result of Roe versus Wade and Doe versus Bolton was that a woman in all 50 states in the Union could kill her baby up until the day of birth. This was not a piece of legislation that was passed. This was raw judicial power. This was the ruling of an oligarchy pushed on all 50 states. A crime against God, a crime against humanity, an assault on the Constitution, and a murderous assault on innocent human life. This decision will rot in hell and be remembered as the most heinous and disgraceful and evil Supreme Court decision ever issued in the United States. God have mercy on us. When we come back, I'm going to look at the history of other social revolutions, what we have to do in order to bring the killing fields to an end. And I'm going to show you 3 commercials that we ran during my presidential run in 2012. Commercials that were literally seen by millions and millions of Americans who perhaps for the first time were brought face to face with what Roe versus Wade is really all about.
Moments with Moses, If you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command you this day, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you.
A nation without a conscience is a nation without a soul. A nation without a soul is a nation that cannot live. Sir Winston Churchill. Welcome back. Our mission is to restore the full protection of law to unborn human beings from conception until birth. The question is, how do we get from here to there? What strategies, what tactics, what rhetoric, what actions must we employ to be victorious? Well, we can certainly learn from the successful fights for justice that have occurred in America's history. For example, slavery. It was completely abolished. You cannot own a slave in any of the 50 states. Child labor, abolished. All women can vote. There was a time when women could not vote in the United States of America, and now they can. And of course, the civil rights movement prevailed, and the Jim Crow laws were crushed underfoot. What I want to point out to you is that in each of those successful social revolutions, they used the images of injustice. They showed the brutalized victims of tyranny. And I submit to you, dear friend, that if we are going to prevail against this brutal slaughter of the innocents, we are going to have to show the babies. Now, I'm going to show you 3 television commercials that I ran when I ran for president in 2012, and other congressional candidates ran around the country. I want you to know that we are about to show you the victims of various crimes, both against unborn babies and victims in the Holocaust in Germany, Black Americans here in America. So, if there are small children in the room and you do not want them to see these images, now is the time to let them go out. But while you're watching these commercials, I want you to remember, no social revolution since the invention of the camera has prevailed without showing the victims. Run the first commercial, please. Slavery, child labor, segregation. These images are burned in our memories so we can say never again. But it is happening again. A Holocaust in America. The slaughter of babies by abortion. This is murder, and President Obama perpetuates this massacre. Open your eyes, don't harden your heart. We must make child killing illegal. I'm Randall Terry, and I approve this message. The next commercial that I want to show you has the Roe of Roe versus Wade, Norma McCorvey. And in case you did not know it, the entire decision was based upon a lie. I'll let Norma tell you herself.
I'm Norma McCorvey, the former Jane Roe of the Roe versus Wade decision that brought legal child killing to America. I was persuaded by feminist attorneys to lie, to say that I'd been raped and I needed an abortion. It was all a lie. Since then, over 50 million babies have been murdered. I will take this burden to my grave. Please don't follow my mistakes. Do not vote for Barack Obama. He murders babies.
I'm Randall Terry, and I approve this message. God bless our dear sister. Thank God for her conversion. We need to keep her always in our prayers. I don't think any of us can imagine the burden, the weight on her soul, because she agreed to be used by those who brought this hideous Holocaust upon us. Finally, There are many people who argue that a woman has a right over her body and that a woman needs access to safe legal abortion. I submit to you that not only is the abortion holocaust an assault on innocent babies, but it is also an assault on women. And the simple fact is that most babies are killed who have a pregnant mother who is unwed. These women are used and then abused as they are pressured to kill their baby. So I want to show you the third commercial that we ran about the war on women.
There's a war on women waged by men
who think a pregnant woman is a broken sex toy, and the way to fix her is to kill her baby.
Obama leads the attack.
Obama voted that babies who survive abortion should be left to die.
He would kill his own grandchild.
He says he doesn't want his daughters punished with a baby.
Is a baby punishment?
Or God's blessing.
Send a message that women deserve respect.
We're tired of being used.
Then told to kill our baby.
Don't
vote for Obama.
I'm Randall Terry, and I approve this message. Thank God for these women who have the courage to say what child killing really is: murder and a war on women. When we come back from this break, I'm going to discuss with you how we get from here, where you can kill a baby for any reason in all 50 states, to the place where the full protection of law is restored from conception until birth. Don't go away. They slay the widow and the sojourner, and murder the fatherless. And they say, the Lord does not see, the God of Jacob does not perceive. Understand, O dullest of the people, fools, when will you be wise? He who planted the ear, does he not hear? He who formed the eye, does he not see? He who chastens the nations, does he not chastise? Friend, you need to get this book. We won't get fooled again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you.
I'm crying for you, baby. Before you left your mother's womb, they took your life away.
Welcome back to the program. The goal of the pro-life movement is to make it a crime to kill an innocent child from conception until birth in all 50 states. That's our goal. Our goal is not overturning Roe versus Wade. Our goal is not putting it back to the state legislature so each state can decide for itself. Any more than you could say it's illegal to own a slave in New York State, but it's legal to own one in Mississippi. And our goal is not to educate. There are groups out there raising millions and millions of dollars saying that our goal is to educate the American public about abortion. That is not true. In fact, we can see what a disaster that agenda is, because for the first time since Roe versus Wade, a majority of Americans say that they're pro-life, but only 20% of them want to make it a crime to kill a baby. We have this bizarre, horrific state of affairs where people are admitting, yes, this is a baby, and yes, we can kill that baby legally, and oh, I'm pro-life. That is the horrific fruit of simply education. Our goal is to create a social revolution in which we prevail. What we have to do is pass a federal law that makes it a crime in all 50 states to kill an innocent human being from conception until birth. We can invoke Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution in the law, which forbids the federal courts, including the Supreme Court, from ruling or adjudicating on the law. We can just take it right out of the court's hands and say to the court, never again will you rule on the right of the government to protect its citizens from conception until birth. Just block the courts from ruling. And by the way, we are also going to have to outlaw any abortifacient, any human pesticide, any chemical that masquerades as birth control but kills a human being from conception until birth. Friend, do I have the courage to say these words publicly and to fight for this goal without equivocation, without compromise, without apology? That is our mission, and I invite you to be a part of it for the love of God and for the love of babies.